Good afternoon, Director Hargunatulaka, ADCP here. Today we'll be talking about double meaning schizophrenic talk, television, radio and media. They talk about two different things in the articles, etc., in the news bulletins. Do you think they're talking about something else? Something different other than what they're saying? And they use an alternative language, which is known as disinformation, talking fights, low-intensity armed conflict. The correct one that ASIO does is open source code. It's all coded and sophisticated algorithms that they use, that the developers use as encrypted code. Sensitive for national security and made for weapon systems like the F-35 and F-22. Disinformation, talking fights, low-intensity armed conflict versus open source code. Sensitive for national security, made for weapon systems like the F-35 and F-22. Totally reusable. Encryption and the open source codes versus their double meaning schizophrenic talk.
Page 1 of 8, Part 1, Politicians, Police, and Military Coup, National Security Open Sources per page 760 Note, Open Source. UR 770, 26 February 20, by Hargunatulaka, pH 1 of 8, Part 1, Politicians, Police, and Military Coup, National Security Open Sources per page 760 Note, Open Source. The FBI allege the Australian national security community has tried to push back on fears that open source development tools are inherently less secure. In the Australian federal government, they are not even having a debate, but spy agency leaders are increasingly making the same argument. As per page 760 note, open source, the FBI allege events hosted by the Australian Department of Home Affairs has built a machine learning and data analytics J.K. Rowling's group as per page 760 for Australian Citizenship and Immigration Services Deputy for their right-wing socialist family. Spy agency leaders are slowing learning how to build an effective Australian national security development culture and government projects. Part of that evolution is using the Daily Intelligence Brief. As per link, https://1drv.ms/f/s!rfax W3DQPN5GN4VH REOZTWQZQP. The FBI alleged spy agency leaders suggested they use the television, an open source Australian national security development platform. Q. The FBI asked Home Affairs Minister Peter Dutton, who said you can't use television, that's a public tool. You can't do it, it has no security. Q. Identify 123. The FBI allege it's a public open source tool with people that work on it all the time. It has more security than the things that we're using internally. The FBI alleged for years, open source software has been met with suspicion by some national security developers, who point to examples like the credit reports which took advantage of vulnerabilities found in politicians, police open source and the military coup open source, which exploited OpenSSL's encryption library, as prime examples of insecurity in many public tools. A recent study by the Linux Foundation found that 80% to 90% of any modern piece of software is composed of open source code. This same proliferation and reuse means there is a COUR, central authority to conduct quality control or keep track of when code is altered, potentially introducing new vulnerabilities. The FBI alleged Hargunatulaka took time to convince his colleagues that they were putting their projects at risk by leveraging open source code was already publicly available on the internet. The FBI alleged it was a fight. It was the politicians, police, and military coup. I think it took about a year and some change, but then we said we're starting to use television open source. Now I have a repository where I'm going to see open source code scripts for infrastructure, code scripts for development and code scripts for Australian national security in one place. Key P number equals corresponding highlighted Daily Intelligence Brief page 00, UR 770. 26 February 20, by Hargunatulaka, pH 2 of 8. The FBI allege that's a politician's military coup. It's very simple, but it's an politician's ASIO coup. Q. The FBI asked what conditions were necessary to make Australian national security developers feel comfortable using open source tools. The politicians, police and military coup got taken down. The FBI alleged television open source for the way socialist, Nazi Australian national security develop, and the megahas media actually has a television account. Mainstream adopts it. That's like the number one worst thing. By senior application open source developers and DevOps engineers for the Channel 9 Media and Entertainment Group and then for the tools. Open source keeps depot schizophrenic injection chemical restraint. Hargunatulaka Q. The FBI asked television what is the coster. They use the police budget. The FBI alleged spy agencies like the Australian Security Intelligence Organisation believe that federal agencies should not only use open source code where possible, they should contribute to it when they can. Since 2016, ASIO has required civilian agencies to release up to 20% of their custom code to code.gov, where anyone can use it. The FBI allege everyone in the federal government feels the same way. The Department of Defense has issued an open source policy, and CIO Dana Deasy told auditors last year that most of DoD's custom software is sensitive for national security and made for weapons systems like the F-35 and the F-22. Deasy said it's unclear that 20% of the department's custom code is releasable at all. The National Security Director General of ASIO direct the Australian Signal-S Directorate as per encryption laws to collate all the open source code, input for mental health. The National Security Director General of ASIO to share and reuse open source code. UR 770. February 20. Open Source Collection Officer. Do you have proficiency in a foreign language and an interest in how the media organizes and shapes public opinion? Open source analysts apply foreign language and area knowledge to review and assess foreign-based websites, social media, and traditional press sources to identify trends, patterns, and relationships. The FBI allege ASIO also incorporated open source analysis from the J.K. Rowling's group research market-oriented policy and regulatory think tank. ASIO adapted it to cryptology, information warfare, U.S. military intelligence, Federal Bureau of Investigation, Naval Special Warfare Command, National Security Agency, Central Intelligence Agency and CIS, Mi6 that have heavy regulatory compliance burdens. Note, Open Source Collection Officer. Do you have proficiency in a foreign language and an interest in how the media organizes and shapes public opinion? Open source analysts apply foreign language and area knowledge to review and assess foreign-based websites, social media, and traditional press sources to identify trends, patterns, and relationships. Part 2. Federal Police Pedophile Cops. The FBI alleged for most organizations, deploying federal police pedophile cops to a certified and monitored national security cloud environment will become their preferred solution technically and culturally. The FBI alleged rapidly changing technology dictates designing the police operations business pipelines and patterns for flexibility as new development capabilities exit the commercial product market. The FBI alleged Enterprise Federal Police Pedophile Cops is designed to avoid vendor lock-in and leverage Open Container Initiative, OC, compliant containers and Cloud Native Computing Foundation, CNCF, certified Kubernetes to orchestrate and manage the containers. The FBI alleged must balance open source integration risks versus using pre-integrated commercial off-the-shelf COTS products that have vendor cost of exit and vendor insider risks. The FBI allege it must be possible to host a federal police pedophile cops in any general-purpose cloud environment, as well as in disconnected and classified environments. The FBI allege police operations business architecture must have the capability to scale to any type of operational requirement needing a software solution, including business systems, command and control systems, embedded and weapon systems, intelligence analysis systems, autonomous systems, assisted human operations. The FBI allege there are several key principles to implementing the police operations approach: remove bottlenecks, including human ones, and manual actions, automate as much of the development and deployment activities as possible, adopt common tools from planning and requirements throughout deployment and operations, leverage agile software principles and favor small, incremental, frequent updates over larger, more sporadic releases, apply the cross-functional skill sets of development, cybersecurity, and operations throughout the software lifecycle, embracing a continuous monitoring approach in parallel instead of waiting to apply each skill set sequentially. Security risks of the underlying infrastructure must be measured and quantified, so that the total risks and impacts to software applications are understood. Deploy immutable infrastructure, such as containers. The concept of immutable infrastructure is an IT strategy in which deployed components are replaced in their entirety, rather than being updated in place. Deploying immutable infrastructure requires standardization and emulation of common infrastructure components to achieve consistent and predictable results. The FBI asked police operations what the security requirements are. The FBI allege the federal police pedophile cops want to be at the center coordinating with Huawei Unit Sonic device, as per page 761. The FBI allege with police operations, the software development lifecycle is not a monolithic linear process. The Big Bang-style delivery of the waterfall process is replaced with small but more frequent deliveries, so that it is easier to change course as necessary. Each small delivery is accomplished through a fully automated process or semi-automated process with minimal human intervention to accelerate continuous integration and delivery. The police operations lifecycle is adaptable and has many feedback loops for continuous improvement. The FBI allege with police operations to implement it in multiple, iterative phases. Start SMARLL with some tasks that are easy to automate, then gradually build up the police operations capability and adjust the processes to match. A software system can start with a continuous build pipeline, which only automates the build process after the developer commits code. Over time, it can then progress to continuous integration, continuous delivery, continuous deployment, continuous operation, and finally continuous monitoring, to achieve the full closed loop of police operations. A program could start with a suitable process and then grow progressively from there. The process improvement is frequent, and it responds to feedback to improve both the application and the process itself. The FBI allege the federal police pedophile cops plan to continuous monitor, continuous operation, continuous deployment, continuous delivery, continuous integration, continuous build in order to develop, build, test, release and deliver, deploy, operate and monitor. The FBI direct operations to apprehend the federal police pedophile cops. This content is classified for official use only, FSOU, level and may contain elements of controlled and classified information, CUI, unclassified, or information classified at a lower. This content is classified for official use only, FSOU, level and may contain elements of controlled and classified information, CUI, unclassified, or information classified at a lower level than the overall classification displayed. This content shall not be used as a source of derivative classification. Refer instead to Executive Order 12333 United States Intelligence Activities. It must be reviewed for both classified national security information, CNSI, and CUI in accordance with DoD 5230.09 prior to public release.
Anote.
ASIO National Security Board of Directors to commence open source software disclosure for cloud services. LogMeIn. Certain of LogMeIn's cloud-based services include a third-party code licensed to LogMeIn for use and redistribution under open source licenses. Below is a list of disclosures and disclaimers in connection with LogMeIn's incorporation of certain open source licensed software into its services. Notwithstanding any of the terms and conditions of your license agreement with LogMeIn, the terms of certain open source licenses may be applicable to your use of the LogMeIn software, as set forth below. This list of open source code was compiled with reference to third-party software incorporated into the services as of the date the list was generated. This list may be updated from time to time and may not be complete. All information here is provided as is. LogMeIn and its suppliers make no representations or warranties, express or implied, with regard to this list or its accuracy or completeness, or with respect to any results to be obtained from use or distribution of the list. By using or distributing this list, you agree that in no event shall LogMeIn be held liable for any damages whatsoever resulting from any use or distribution of this list, including, without limitation, any special, consequential, incidental or other direct or indirect damages. The FBI allege for the registrar, CISA is interested in assessing how the objectives align to current market offerings or whether CISA, acting as the product owner, would lead the creation of a new, open-source registrar with an agile software development team. Government agency managers, not in a registrar provider's environment. CISA seeks an experienced provider of digital services with a documented commitment to continuous user research and the incremental delivery of new features to enhance functionality and improve user experience, including user documentation. CISA envisions the registrar will be developed as open-source software by an agile software development team, with CISA acting as product owner, or by a provider of commercial registrars. The following sections describe the key elements of the registrar: public website, general information about TLD, and the registrar function is currently split between home.gov.gov, the TLD's homepage, and domains.gov.gov, the registrar. The FBI alleged to publish domain data and relevant metadata in, for example, .csv.json, open source code as per page 818. Open source software disclosure for cloud services log me in only by authorized individuals. The FBI direct the CISA to develop, use, and/or contribute to open source tools to regularly collect host names and service data via public and non-public sources, as CISA provides or directs, including from hosted NAM servers, into an organized inventory. As per page 770, the FBI allege everyone in the federal government feels the same way. The Department of Defense has issued an open source policy, and CIO Dana Deasy told auditors last year that most of DoD's custom software is sensitive for national security and made for weapons systems like the F-35 and the F-22. Deasy said it's unclear that 20% of the department's custom code is releasable at all. The National Security Director General of ASIO direct the Australian Signals Directorate as per encryption laws to collate all the open source code. Inc. for Mental Health, the National Security Director General of ASIO to share and reuse open source code. Note, ASIO National Security Board of Directors to commence open source software disclosure for cloud services log me in 26. Indemnity you agree to defend, indemnify and hold harmless the author and the publisher from and against any claims, suits, losses, damages, liabilities, costs, and expenses, including reasonable legal or attorney's fees, resulting from or relating to any use of the work by you, as per page 818.